Hello, everybody. Welcome to SciWorx. Thank you very much for your patience. I'm not dead, at least yet. Now, if you check out my SciWorx Lab Notes channel, there's a little mention of what I've been doing once we can't be so distracted, and I apologize to all of you all. But today I was wanting to talk about something I'm seeing a lot of here on YouTube, and this is an opinion piece. This is not fact. This is not, we're not talking about the mathematics behind desert varnish or anything like that. This is just me being opinionated. One thing that I see a lot of on YouTube and Twitter, and God help us all, Facebook, is that I see, fanboys becoming very enamored with a commercial space brand. Of course, the big three: SpaceX, Virgin Galactic, and Blue Origin. And well, this person's got this technology, this person's got this technology, and this technology is better than that technology. Well, that all may be true. Someone is going to have the best technology for whatever it is. This engine will be better. Well, this parachute system will be better than everybody else's, and everyone's going to have the best of something, some component of commercial space. Someone's going to have the crappiest. It's just because they're not all the same. But the thing I was wanting to remind everybody on is that even with, the different missions of Blue Origin and Virgin Galactic and SpaceX, there's plenty to do in space. Space, for all intents and purposes, is infinite. The resources in space, for all intents and purposes, is infinite for us humans to use. I do like the Jeff Bezos's idea of moving manufacturing off planet and to turn the entire Earth into a national park. We could all use a little Yellowstone in our backyard, a little Yosemite in our backyard, a little Great Smoky Mountains in our backyard. I like the idea of Richard Branson, of making a space line. Not going to, his goal clearly is not to go to the moon. His goal is to go from Sydney, Australia, to Los Angeles, to New Mexico, to wherever else, using actually a commercially viable space airline, using rocketry to initially go from point to point, airport to airport here on Earth, and from maybe at some point in time from Earth to the moon, when somebody else has staked out those hotels or somebody has staked out those bases. He just wants to shuttle people back and forth, and that's awesome. Then there's Elon Musk, who's stated multiple times he wants to start human civilization on Mars. He's not wanting to escape Earth. He's wanting to preserve Earth in case of a complete catastrophe. He's stated all the time. There could be some sort of climatological catastrophe. There could be some plague. There could be nuclear war, and that all these things have the ability to wipe out humanity. Guess what's going on? Russia has been doing nuclear weapon saber rattling over Ukraine for months now. There's COVID, which could have been so much worse, and that story still hasn't finished yet. Could be something else that comes along. And we've got global climate change that we're doing to ourselves. So we've got all three going on. All of the fears of why Elon Musk wants to go to Mars is going on right now at the same time. So understand his wanting to preserve humanity, preserve what animals we can. He's actually spoken of saving the biological flora and fauna of Earth and backing it all up on Mars. It's not perfect, but in case of one or more calamities, it's still there. And we hope that humanity manages to march forward in hopefully a less toxic, less disease-ridden, and less warlike manner. So it's just but there is so much to space, so much in space that I really don't understand the fanboyism, and there's so much. If you research, the three founders, Bezos, Branson, and Musk, there's so much BS everywhere about all three. It really takes dedicated searching to drill down, to find out what is really true. And it's like journalists that really, went and did the work, they can't even find these legendary emerald mines that Elon Musk's father had ever had. Turned out Elon Musk's father was kind of let's say, a hooligan in terms with the truth. He may have talked big, but he actually didn't have the money that one blames or accuses him of having. He never had. And so we're fanboying ourselves along with these mythologies of the three founders based on stuff that's not even true. This includes Branson and Bezos. And there are legitimate concerns about all three of the founders. For example, a lot of people and specifically NASA wasn't really happy with Bezos went around trying to get the Artemis contract from NASA. Was that the best use of his time? Was the best use of NASA's time? You can't sue your way into low Earth orbit. You can engineer your way there, and that's what it's going to take. And it seems that Blue Origin is doing very well, with the BE4 engine and getting things forward and moving on, and that's awesome. And it's also awesome that Virgin Galactic is doing so well and moving on with better spacecraft, better engineering, better launch capabilities. We see that in Virgin Orbit. And then there's SpaceX that is iterating at such a fast rate, the government can't keep up. Literally, they can't keep up. So there is infinite resources in space. We do not need to destroy Earth the way we've been doing. And Jeanette Schull, she has a comment that's totally normal. We need to spend that money fixing up Earth. And that's true. There, Congress, at least in America's Congress, our budget is multiple times more than the net worth of those three individuals that I'm talking about, Bezos and Branson and Musk. But why can't we get Congress? I mean, Congress is supposed to be the representation of we the people. Why are we all of a sudden we're putting all of that to fix up Earth, right, on three guys that's trying to make space more accessible? And the reason they are successful is because the government gave up. Remember, Richard Nixon canceled Apollo. We still had 3 more missions to go: Apollo 18, 19, and 20. We were going to do remarkable things in terms of science and research, but we didn't. Nixon didn't see the need to do that research and study. And so then we got the space shuttle, which was very anemic. I mean, it did amazing things, but it never left Earth orbit. And the same thing with the International Space Station, never left Earth orbit. We've been exploring just a couple 100 miles up for a very long time. The remarkable discoveries are all done by robots, specifically on Mars. We've been pushing that direction. But if you don't, if you don't see the need for exploring and using the resources of space, let me put it in this way: the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter is littered, of course, with asteroids. That's why we call it the asteroid belt. These asteroids are typically made up of metals, a lot of precious metals, iron, nickel, and silver, and gold, and other sometimes really heavy metals. Excuse me. And with the amount that's in these asteroids. Remember, there's no igneous rock mostly in these asteroids. They're all pure metal. I mean, there's some scrap of this, some scrap of that, but they're much more pure than what you pull out of the ground here on Earth. And some of these asteroids, random asteroids, some of these asteroids are so big to get the same amount of copper and tin and iron and nickel and whatever else out of them, you would nearly have to strip mine North America from one asteroid to get the same amount of metals. So when Bezos says, well, we need to move manufacturing and material resourcing off of Earth, well, I'm going to think that's a good idea. I would rather process asteroids floating around, in our solar system. One, they become less. That asteroid that we mine will not become something that will wipe out all species on Earth. We don't want an asteroid hit again. But it's if we're placing all of our bets for the welfare of Earth on three guys, right, on three individuals to fix up Earth, we're really not looking at the problem squarely in the head. It's if it's all it's going to take is three dudes, and their combined wealth, let's call it $500 billion. Well, we spend that every year on the military. How far has that gotten us? We spend that every year. So, I mean, if we extract, let's just say we take all of their money, that's $500 billion, right, in their value. What are we going to do next year? What are we going to do next year? Ian, yeah, that would be absolutely true. If we do mine asteroids and bring the metals home, the value would lower dramatically. It would democratize the metals industry. It would democratize resources. And one could argue that the more we use resources of space, the less valuable the three individuals we're talking about, their portfolios would be. I mean, because their rockets are only worth so much. And, there is one asteroid, 16 Psyche, that is so valuable. I think the value was like 10 with about a dozen zeros behind it or something, like $100 quintillion or some ridiculous amount. I mean, all of these, they are in abundance, and it would democratize economics greatly. Even if you're just looking at, well, this rock came in from space and we mined it and it was worth this much, it would democratize everything else along with it: furniture, denim, wheat, everything. And so we as individuals really don't understand how big and how helpful space can be to the very poorest people living on Earth. I mean, right now, on Earth, we're limited to a very finite amount of arable land, very finite amount of precious metals. And we can only grow so much food, man. We can only mine so much. I mean, let's say we're not making electric cars, what a lot of people hate for whatever reason. Let's say we recycle everything, right? And that probably should. But at some point in time, we have to move on. We've got to save as much as we can of our biosphere, of what makes Earth, and move all this other meaningless manufacturing off planet. Put it in orbit. Put it on the moon. Put it on Mars. Put it in orbit around Mars. Let's see. Ian also says, how long will it take SLS to actually make orbit and the moon? I believe Blue Origin SpaceX could have been there first if the FAA hadn't dragged its political. Yeah, if the FAA and the EPA is certainly giving SpaceX some problems in Boca Chica, definitely. But Musk is also plowing forward in Cape Canaveral. He's got a license to launch there. He can do anything he wants out of Cape Canaveral, and he is building like mad the two launch towers there at the Cape. Jeanette Schul, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. I was going on that space will not save us from issues here. Well, yeah, the biggest issues here is us. I mean, racism, inequality, economic inequality, propaganda, naked war, naked aggression, murder, death, school shootings. The biggest problem on Earth is us. It's not the giraffes. Ian, imagine China mass producing Starship or New Glenn. Would you travel on it? China had launched a vehicle into space. I think it was earlier this year, late last year, that the rocket on its way up created a tremendous amount of space junk, orbiting debris, and didn't apologize. And it's I'm not really jazzed on anything. I mean, I wish them all luck. I hope all their launches are safe, but I'm not there yet. All the and Jeanette continues, all the physiological problems with humans in space, people and plants are evolved for here. Well, that's true. And that brings up another comment. If humans ever do move outside of the solar system, we go to some other planet that is biologically active. I mean, it's really incompatible with us. I mean, it's going to be hard to imagine a planet. I mean, yeah, we could probably get the gravity right. We could probably find something where the air is breathable and the temperature is okay. That's probably going to be within the realm of possibility. But everything, the organic soup that we grew up in, that we live in, the bacteria, the viruses, we grew up with it. We all evolved lockstep together. There's a good argument that if we do find a biologically active planet someplace, we're still going to have to wall ourselves off from it, because it may be, we don't know yet, we don't have that data, but there's a good chance, theoretically, that it will not be biologically compatible with us. Mining asteroids, I think it does make economic sense if you put a value on the Earth that you are saving. If you look at the economic damage from strip mining, which is the common thing now, not just for minerals, but for fossil fuels like coal or whatever, they're extremely, the cost of manufacturing, especially with the carbon footprint of manufacturing stuff, the carbon footprint of resource gathering to begin with, we don't calculate that into the cost here on Earth. But if you do calculate that cost of the carbon footprint of mining, manufacturing, etc., then it makes a whole lot of economic sense. Not just that you're saving your planet for the future generations, but the actual cost of cleanup and maintaining, and how much it costs to keep the temperature down from becoming bad for all of us. Jeanette Schul, another thing we are getting into, again, changing the amount of rock on Earth and rock out in space. When we assume just doing a little of this will not hurt anything, this is where we get into trouble. Another thing we're getting into, changing the amount of rock. Okay, so the way I'm guessing this is a force equals mass times acceleration issue. The mass of the Earth is changing. just space dust every day it's like 400. I got to look this up. The amount of space dust coming in every day makes all the other things negligible. Yeah, cosmic dust. It is estimated that it's the daily influx every day of just cosmic dust landing on Earth is somewhere between 5 and 300 tons per day. Per day. I mean, multiply that since we first evolved. I mean, we can't dig and launch iron fast enough out of Earth to make up for the dust landing on Earth every day. That's not counting meteoroids and whatever else, or meteorites or whatever else. It is, even if we, at some point, yeah, you're going to have to start balancing that out, in terms of mass here versus mass there. But the Earth is in terms of F equals ma, the mass number is really, really high. And even though the amount of dust that hits the Earth, it is still negligible from day to day to day, from eon to eon, in fact. Good article in Energy Times magazine. They were interviewing astronauts. Twins once stayed on Earth. Interesting. They have a lot to do with weightlifting. Oh, yes. Oh, God. Yeah. I know the twins you're talking about. One stayed on Earth. Yeah. There was, it's rough. I mean, weightlessness is rough. It's unhealthy, using, centripetal force for artificial gravity is an answer for that. Anything long term would have to address that. But yeah, so yeah, the twin astronauts, the one was in space, one was here on the ground. I'm blanking on their names right now, and I'm totally ashamed of it. But yeah, there's a lot of healthy. Let's not sugarcoat it. That's why we do research into these things, But I do think we have an answer to that, especially for long-term space travel. Last comment from Ian McAvoy: if we mine asteroids, material would need to be processed off Earth. It would be a lot easier to do it off Earth, let's say you have a chunk of asteroid, right? You have this little cube of asteroid. You put it in, heat it up. From what we've learned on Skylab and the International Space Station, is the metals tend to separate in a zero-G environment or a micro-G environment. And it's a lot easier to separate them when just have them floating around as in their little bubble than it is, separating out on Earth, because then it kind of tends to mix much more readily than if it's a microgravity. You know it. Yes, Ian McAvoy wants to know, is that a drawing of Bob Lazar's recovered UFO? Well, it just might be. I got a couple videos on the topic about. I have a series of videos called After Disclosure, and I ask all of you to go watch it. I don't try. I'm hoping I'm not fanboying, but I possibly could be. Let's see, was there any questions I didn't get to? Hello, Shelly. How are you doing? But also, I was wanting to go back to Jeanette Scholl's question. We really should need to spend that money fixing up Earth. Totally agree. If we spent, well, first of all, we don't. No one wants to in Congress or other world governments want to spend the money. It's a. I think it's one of the downfalls of capitalism. It's I think we're heading for a death of capitalism. It's going to be something else. I think we've got three things that's moving against capitalism. Capitalism just isn't prepared to handle. Capitalism is supported by, well, I did a paper on this. If you go to stormbear.com, I've got a rewritten version of that thing I did, but in college back in the 80s. It was like back then I titled it, "We were 4 inventions away from the collapse of capitalism." And I picked out 4 inventions that would kind of wipe out. And that's not turning it into communism, not turning it into socialism, it's turning it into something else. Back then, there was a stipulated that the first leg of the stool, so to speak, would be some method to, at free or nil cost, to send media around the planet. Now, at that point in time, I'd already programmed my own email service for the county I was in. I was already deep into electronics and computers and network communication, so I knew that was coming. So that was an easy one. The third rung that would be defeated would be probably energy. When energy is free or nil, it frees up. It frees up a lot of human potential and lowers the cost dramatically of everything else. So, one reason why, people are so, I think, at least from a propaganda point of view, the oil companies spend billions of years telling people how good fossil fuels are. If you go back and look at a lot of the old magazines, go to your local library and look through the ads from the 50s and 60s, oil companies telling you how great methane is, how great natural gas is, and why these newfangled solar energy and even nuclear, they weren't happy about, because it takes money away from them. But if all of a sudden everyone's got solar panels on their roof and they're creating their own energy, and even factories creating their own energy, we no longer have to dig up fossil fuels. We no longer have to have huge network electrical distribution networks that we have to maintain. It all becomes local and cheap, or sometimes nil. If you've got enough sunny days or have enough wind, the only cost to get the energy is the infrastructure to make it. No more shipping energy around the world. No more fighting wars over the energy around the world. So all of a sudden, there goes that rung of capitalism. Because everything made on Earth, every single thing, loaf of bread, pencil erasers, everything has a component of energy cost built in. And if you strip that out, a lot of the more pricier things have a lot of energy it needs to create. And so when you lower that down to 0 or nil, well, you got to find some other way to make money. So the other way that the second rung, going up this rung from media or communications, then up to energy. So what's the next rung? I think the next rung, would be labor. All of a sudden, if labor is all robots, or labor is, or manufacturing, I should say, if manufacturing is all robots or 3D printers, well, there goes any need for labor. There goes every need for a manufacturing. If we ever do get to a point, technologically, to have something like Star Trek's replicators, you have a matter stream going in and you're having Earl Grey hot coming out. How are banks going to make their money? How are all these other mechanical issues of the economic system going to be held afloat? Well, there's one other thing that would be, in terms of a market, that you just couldn't kind of technologically work your way out of. When I talked about this just a few minutes ago, there is a finite number of acres of arable land on Earth. Finite. There's so many mountains, there's so many deserts, there's so many fruited plains, so to speak. And so, but as soon as we start colonizing other worlds, land gets really cheap, really quick. You start colonizing one world, all of a sudden you've doubled the land mass that's accessible to humans overnight. Well, what does that do to the value of a condo in Miami Beach? You know? So we are literally 3 inventions away from the total collapse of the economic system we now know as capitalism. And there are guys working their tails off in Silicon Valley, in Shanghai, in London, or at least I should say in Cambridge and other universities around the world working on all these problems. If Congress actually knew what was going on in Silicon Valley, they would probably nuke the place. Because there are people there, for better or worse, are working on these issues every single day. I mean, look, there's lots of venture capitalists now out there just spending money hands over fist trying to get fusion energy to work, which really puts so many things, disrupts everything. I mean, if we can actually get fusion energy to work for ourselves, it already works in nature. Look outside. There's a big bright thing in the sky called the sun. That's a fusion reactor. Now, if we can bring that down to a smaller scale here on Earth, that would be awesome. But it's going to disrupt even these guys out there. It's got windmills. It's going to disrupt them too. But yeah, I mean, and Congress, I don't think, has the capability of understanding what these issues are, what this technology does. Remember, the United States Congress is probably the only deliberative body on earth that uses the term college graduate as a slur. What the fuck? Seriously, really? Slur? You're using college graduate as a slur, man? I mean, you think that's the smartest thing in the world? No, it's not. So it's, so when the American Congress is so dysfunctional, and ours is really dysfunctional. Remember, we can't keep guns out of school because guns. We Americans put up with the wholesale slaughter of children because of the religious the religious zealotry of gun freaks. So, Congress would never see any of this coming. Also, business can't help itself because, our economic system is based on disruption. Whoever can disrupt it the most gains the most. So whoever comes up with a really crazy quantum 3D printer to make you cupcakes on your birthday, they will do it, no matter how much it destroys everything else in their wake. Business will continue on until it makes the economic environment totally collapse, because not doing it is bad for business, if that makes any sense. If you have an MBA, you may understand that. So what else will we have? Shelley, glad you're doing great. Dorius, hey, how are you doing? See, Ian's in Cyprus. Oh, and he reminds me he's British. Okay, we know. Local communities are begging to fund and build local solar farms to power local communities. Simple, because of the cost of gas-fired power plants on its own. Oh yeah, it's just a lot of small island chains in the Pacific. I mean, it's is it Fiji? Fiji, I think it's Fiji, has huge cargo vessels. I'm not sure if it's Fiji or not. There's a South Pacific island. Everybody knows this, but I think it's Fiji. Has huge cargo container ships or huge ships coming in with fossil fuels, maybe primarily methane or something, or natural gas, or diesel or something, just to keep everything running. But yet, Fiji, lots of sunshine, lots of wind, offshore wind they could be using, solar they could be using, tidal they could be using, and it would cost next to nothing, especially if you always calculate in the environmental damage that fossil fuels do. It'd be dirt cheap to accomplish. Jeanette, absolutely. Well, no nature, no economy. Hopefully, the MBAs understand that. See, I think the MBAs is like the most useless degree there is. I'm just not really partial to it. Because every time I really talk to an MBA, it is just they're only looking at the economics. They're not looking at the impact outside of the checking account. I don't know who that was. Ian says Cyprus has the same problem. Huge cargo ships of methane and petroleum costs had quadrupled in 12 months. No joke. Thank God they're probably not buying it from California. Like I can't, I cannot wait to get my Cybertruck. I've got one on order. Have had it on order since the night it was introduced live. Yeah, electric cars cost a lot up front, but right now it costs me about $80 to go 220 miles in my current vehicle. Cybertruck goes almost three times as far on a tank, a topped off battery, as my current Toyota does. And to top it off is going to cost, and to go that 600 miles is going to cost me about $15 compared to I want to say $240. So the fact that it's more energy efficient. Remember, the Cybertruck takes the same amount of carbon footprint to make a Cybertruck as it did my Toyota. But once it's built, that's kind of it. Its carbon footprint is packed into the manufacturing cost, not the operation. Or the truck is operational dependent. Wow, is that $12 a petrol a gallon in Cyprus? Wow, that's insane. I mean, here in California, I think I paid $6.51 a gallon Friday, 2 days ago. So Jeanette says knuckleheads with hour and a half commutes drive up our state gasoline prices in California. Jeanette, are you in California? Because I'm here in Bakersfield. I feel your pain. Yeah, the whole thing, and this again, the housing market, right? There's lots of things. There's a guy, I think he was down in San Diego. He came up with a way to 3D print houses. It was genius. I think it's built on the technology that NASA paid for to 3D print housing on the moon. This guy was also trying to create moon crete. I met this dude at NASA Ames like 20 years ago, whatever. And so if we can 3D create, build houses, and this machine, it inserted the wiring, it plumbed the house, poured the foundation, did everything, and it was awesome. Why are we still building custom stick houses? I don't know. You just set the thing up, it runs, you move in, and literally it takes just a few days to build. Earthquake resistant. But anyway, yeah, so then think of how just 3D printing housing, how that would affect the timber market, the construction market. All of a sudden, prices would plummet, but everybody could afford housing then. Every time we come up with one of these technological leaps, we kill off something that's really, really either bad for the environment or inefficient or both usually. Ouch, $12 in USD. Yeah, 3D it with hempcrete. I don't know much about hempcrete. I did see some. I don't think is a very scientific thing. Somebody was there was one This may have come from some sort of FOD coming out of Fox News. I don't know. But there were claims that we're running out of sand. Silicate is one of the most abundant substances on Earth. I mean, it's the mantle is almost completely silicate. It's got silicates everywhere. You know, I mean, if you look at the bottom of the oceans, it's all sand. Shh, don't tell anybody. So, but I think hempcrete would. Well, I can see some advantages for hempcrete. One, you're storing and bonding carbon out of the atmosphere to grow the hemp inside your house long term. And then once the house is 50 years old, 100 years old, or however long it lasts, you can definitely recycle. You can reclaim the hemp that already has the carbon stored and lessen the impact to the environment. Do you know anybody, Jeanette, do you know anybody that's doing hempcrete or it's actually producing that? Because you could mix these these housing 3D printers up with hempcrete, I think that'd be a double win. So anyway, the whole thing is there's, let's see, Tipper. I saw a video on the cost of feeding livestock being 4 times more than last year. So cost of food to market next fall is going to be mind blowing. Start preparing now. Tipper, there's something else. That's true. Yeah, it's farm fuel. Mostly it's diesel. Is through the roof, of course, with everything else. I was working on a couple projects. Well, one big project was reclaiming farm methane and using it as energy to run the farm, and it was quite successful. It also cleaned up the smell of the dairy farm we're working on. It's not the farts that's the problem, it's the manure. There's much more methane in the manure than the flatulence of the cow. The flatulence of the cow is just some BS that research agnostic or research allergic reporters fall to. Oh, it's cow farts. No, it's the methane that's still in the manure. So when you capture the manure out of the fields or from the barn, we had these big like water tanks. We put the methane in there. We had like a stirring apparatus that would stir up the manure, and we had another big, huge, round bag. If you look on I've got these photos up on my Twitter channel at Storm Bear. Look in the replies, and you'll see it. You may have to go down a couple months to see them, but you can see those in there. And so then we capture the methane, put it all over to a burner and to a generator, and we generate pure electricity off of the methane from the cows. So the methane never gets in the atmosphere, which is much worse than CO2 ever could be. And we get clean energy out of it. Plus, your farm no longer smells like a farm. Now, the other thing that no one really talks about is, depending on the kind of season here in California, America gets anywhere from 25% to 30% of its food from California. If no one's been paying attention, California is under a severe mega drought. They call it a mega drought. The Colorado River is drying up and doesn't even make it out of the state anymore, I don't believe. But in the middle of the state, going up from south to north through California, is called the Sierra Mountains. You've all heard about the Sierra Mountains, Sequoia National Park, Kings Canyon National Park, and Yosemite. All of that's the Sierra Mountains. At the very north end is Mount Shasta. So on the west side of the Sierra Mountains is the San Joaquin Valley, which is where most of the food comes from. San Joaquin has 3 growing seasons, and they're growing all the time. The other side, the east side of the Sierra Mountains, is the Owens River Valley. Now, the water that comes to Owens River Valley or to the San Joaquin Valley all comes from the snowpack that falls every year. And every year, the snow has been getting less and less and less. This last year, the snowpack only lasted until March, and then it was all gone. Usually, it's year round. The snowpack would in the past, before climate change, the snowpack would be year round, and water would run down the San Joaquin River. And remember, the Central Valley, here, or at least the San Joaquin Valley, used to be almost like marshland. But we have so destroyed the environment here in California that it is not. It's all canals. Even the San Joaquin River had to be rebuilt just to get the water from the ice pack. So all that water goes to really industrialized farming. Now, the east side, the water is being robbed there. And there's a video on it called, I've got on my channel called Mono Lake, the ecological disaster in the making. Mono Lake had a lot more detail about this, but shortly, putting it in the short way, the water from the Owens Valley is diverted by an aqueduct that runs from the east side of the Sierra Mountains all the way down to Los Angeles. Los Angeles gets most of its water from the Owens Valley, and it bought the water rights to damn near the entire valley. And this valley goes on for a very long time. It goes all the way up through to Nevada. And so most of that water goes toward people living in Los Angeles. They own it. Now the problem is now water's is gone. I was talking to a farmer last year. His wells, he had to really cut back on his cattle because his wells were 40 feet 40 feet lower than they were this time year before last. He lost 40 feet of well water in a year. And what's left above ground is all going to Los Angeles now. Los Angeles is what, 8 million people? Is that it? The Los Angeles Basin is 8 million people. They're going to have really hard issues in terms of water next year or so. The San Joaquin Valley is now having very difficult issues with water, and that's a large portion of food for America. So, yeah, that's a problem that no one is talking about in Congress because, it really wasn't an insurrection. It was just a mild protest. Congress is eat up with other things that really, they don't want to talk about the real problems because that's just too scary. I catch up with, I saw a video on the cost of feeding livestock, but Tipper's right on that. Yes, Jeanette, yes, I'm an environmentalist just getting the sand. I just said that in case they're going to be another planet to escape the issues here, why bother? They would just do the same here, no limits. Well, here's an interesting thing. I've been part of the bitch fest I've been going on here. I really just want to talk about 3 companies, 3 dudes, and now you guys got to come on board and start making sense. The getting the sand is problematic, but you can also recycle it, thankfully. One thing, so I really don't want to get too political here, but there's a meme that was going around, and it really is spot on. It goes back to not this winter, but winter before last, I think. Why can we have a functional helicopter on Mars, but we can't keep the power on in Texas? Why is that? Because Mars is run by scientists. Texas is run by Republicans. Probably the biggest anti-science group there is in America. Remember, college graduates is a slur to them. So the breed of person it takes to get to Mars is definitely different than the breed of person that is corrupt in the Texas Energy Office, I would say. And to survive on Mars, like the movie The Martian, a famous quote from The Martian. If you're going to survive on Mars, you're going to have to science the shit out of it. Yeah, the technology being done at landfills, we made a little bit a bit fancier, a bit better process for the landfills. They should capture it. They should capture it at farms, and there's no reason why they would. I mean, the infrastructure is a little bit pricey ahead of time, but free electricity for decades, nothing wrong with that. Plus, I was amazed when I first started doing research, and I was amazed how much time goes in to farming, fending off complaints about the smell. That is one of the biggest hurdles farmers have, is people bitching about the smell. So this also gets rid of the smell. So it's it solves another problem. It's always been here. That's the problem. LOL. Seriously, I wonder. This is Jeanette again. I wonder about all the industrial compost piles and carbon coming from, and then methane. I'm here in the Bay Area. We're in slow mode, by the way. Yeah. How about drilling for thermal energy? I think Iceland is. Nothing wrong with drilling for thermal. The planet is just some miles down is a big, huge ball of molten nickel and iron. It's really hot. Heat's just energy. We can, but that's the smart thing to do. And this is America. Come on, Ian. Jeanette, California needs to do golf courses an acre. Needs to do in golf courses and acres of green lawn and oh my God, right? It's just, I mean, that is, it's why, when I first went to El Paso, I first saw a lot of people that were putting in waterless lawns or waterless yards, I should say. People were growing native saguaro cactus. I know I'm murdering that word. Rocks and other things that was roadrunner friendly, indigenous wildlife friendly, and still look gorgeous. Oh my gosh, it was amazing. I mean, these desert landscapes was just as amazing as somebody's, Temple to Scott's yard builder, or whatever. Rebellion 111. Water is the biggest issue of the day. No easy answers. Need a lot of sacrifice. Well, it's. I don't know if we need sacrifice or leadership. I mean, water. Fresh water is a problem. We do live on a water planet, and it just astounds me that water is a problem on a water planet. How is that a problem? We live on a water planet. The aliens haven't taken it yet. I mean, but yeah, there's no easy answers. I mean, converting salt water to fresh water is energy intensive. There are ways to do it, and we're always coming up with better ways, but the Congress just doesn't fund it. So it's just the sacrifice has to be political. The people's just going to have to get off their couches and never reelect anybody to office again. Always pick somebody new. Just have a revolving door. Don't let them consolidate power. I mean, because why? Here's one thing. Why is the people of France more successful with getting the people's agenda across than the United States is? And I think that's because the government of France is still a little bit scared of its people, and the power that they hold. And the people of France know they hold that power. I think that has left. That is no longer the thing in America. We just don't. We were so beat down from all the stupid decisions that Congress hands out. And this is both parties. Trust me, I'm one of those cranky independent voters that hate everybody. But yeah, it's if we just had like real scientifically based decisions, it'd be so much better, and we get so much more shit done. But there's no money in that because oil. Um, oh, don't worry about interrupting the topic. I had mostly said what I had to say, and now it's much more interesting with you here. Trust me. Let's see. Tipper. Pig farms in Central Washington are second to none on smell. Oh my God! I'm driving through Washington State. It's like holy shit. I mean, I did not mean that as a pun, but wow, they need some methane capture up in Washington. How about that SpaceX getting close to launch a Starship? Yeah, I was. There's a guy on here, Everyday Astronaut, has an excellent interview with Musk this last week. I think he's on part 3 now. Part 4 is going to pop up here in the next week or so, and I think it's the capabilities of the first version of the Starship is going to be amazing. 100 tons to orbit, 100 tons to orbit per launch. And we've seen, everybody kind of wrote off SpaceX's Starlink. Oh, it's just, him make some more money. It's not going to do anything to help people. But like I said before, back in the 80s when I wrote that paper, we're 4 inventions away from the collapse of capitalism. When you lower the cost from nil to zero, or from whatever it is to close to zero or nil cost to communicate with anybody on the planet that doesn't have to go through some sort of censorship like China or Russia, it's best for humanity. It's very democratic. And so when he started using, we opened up Starlink, to the Ukrainians. I mean, the president of Ukraine, he says it helped out immensely. Yeah, there ain't no 7-Eleven up there. They could do that with the golf courses too. A new challenge. Yeah, I do think that golf. I mean, when I was growing up, there's like golf courses all over the county, and I lived in a rural county. But most of those have closed down. They're now housing, been turned over to housing. The country clubs go out of business. I mean, no matter how much marketing Nike put into the Tiger Woods line, trying to get younger people interested in golf, it just really didn't take off. I think I think more people interested in soccer than they are golf. Yeah, the people of France are much more vocal. They've got "fuck you" right on. I mean, they probably got they're driving around in their little Renaults. They've already got their big "fuck you" sign, protest sign, or it just goes with them wherever they go. So whenever they need a protest to pop out, no, fuck you, vive la France. Yes, revolving door, good idea. Nobody holds a resume higher than their lives. That's true. Ian, love watching Tim every day. Yeah, he did this one series on Soviet rockets. Again, scientists versus politicians. The design of the Soviet rockets were just insanely good. Just really, yeah. So I recommend. It's geeky. Trust me, it's geeky. But watch it if you can watch it. It's good. It really explains it to the layperson. San Francisco has one. They need to get the scissors out and make the snip. 5 wealthy people use it to pay nothing and pays THW water. Oh yeah, pay a water bill, something like that. Yeah, it's water. It's going to be an issue. It's already an issue. We just haven't really accepted it yet. Yeah, the Starship, the way the launch system is, launch from one place from Vandenberg here on the coast of California to coast of Florida, get there in just a few minutes, literal minutes. I know that's something that Virgin Galactic is aiming for. I don't know if SpaceX would be cargoing people because 100 tons. That's a bit much for That's a lot. That's a lot of mass to be shipping around. Look, like I said, SpaceX's mission is not, I don't think, is to go from Vandenberg Air Force Base to Cape Canaveral. That's not their mission. Their mission is to go up and keep going, go farther. But I do think that's the purview of some others, specifically Virgin Galactic. Blue Origin wants to move manufacturing into space, so it's no longer toxic here on Earth. And I guess it's Tesla's offshoot of the robotic program that we'll be seeing on AI Day. AI Day is Tesla's talking about their auto driving, or whatever they're calling it, software, the intelligence behind that. They're going to start using it for robots for manufacturing, and again, shifting the cost to nil for labor. How does that? Now, all this is really good for people, but Congress is not keeping up. Imagine we all had, lives of leisure that we were promised back in the 50s and 60s in America. We back then, we actually embraced progressiveness, progressive ideas. We just call it, well, that's progress. There was something would change in American culture, and the excuse was, well, that's always progress. That's just progress. And we look for that, but we don't look for it now. So anyway, oh, good God, have I been talking for an hour? You guys let me run my mouth for a whole hour without complaining. Well, bless your hearts. I really appreciate it. So anyway, let's see. Jeanette says, what is weird? I do not know your name. I have recurring dream about going to another planet. I get sent there, and somehow I do like maintenance work, and they have sandworms like in Dune. My name is Storm Bear Williams. Swear to God, it was the 60s, man. I love Dune. The latest iteration was good. I also like the Sci-Fi Channel's version of Doom, the miniseries. I thought that was good. Put point to point in the same category as Catching 747. We don't get parachute. The version of Starship will move forward. Yeah, that's true. It would. It's got to go up a lot higher and burn through a lot more fuel. I don't. I don't know which would be more efficient. Right now, the Boeing hardly uses any 747. They don't. I think they've only got 11. They're building. They have orders for only 11 747s. They only build them specifically for specific customers. The 777 is what they're pushing mostly. It's much more modern, much more fuel efficient. Well, nice to meet you, Jeanette. Please come back again. So, yeah. So anyway, in conclusion, I think we need more hands on deck in terms of space. There's also, let me go back to. Let me run on my mouth. Ian brought some of that point to point, right? I want you to look into a company called two companies, Hermeus, Hermeus, Hermeus.com. They're out of Atlanta, and there's also one called Boom Supersonic. These companies are building hypersonic jets that will be insanely more faster than the Concorde. The Boom Supersonic will be building them in Greensboro, North Carolina. They've already got the land at Greensboro Airport. GSO is the airport code. Some of the students I was previously teaching, they're wanting to go to work for Boom Supersonic. It would also, in terms of getting there in just a few minutes, these jets go Mach 5.5 plus from Hermeus and Boom Supersonic. And there's a couple other players. I can't remember their names right now, but those are the leads. The Boom Supersonic and Hermeus are doing insane kind of work to they're lowering the cost per pound to move from point A to point B. the flight times are ridiculously quick. And so from doing a point to point, I would look to Boom Supersonic or Hermes to do it much more cheaply, much more efficiently in terms of carbon footprint and just fuel use than SpaceX could with a Starship. Now, I will say that DoD has invested a little bit in SpaceX for a project on experimenting with point to point with the Starship for quick deployment of who knows what. DoD didn't say. Methane is a lot cheaper than aircraft fuel. You know, there are planets in the solar system that the atmosphere is totally methane. I mean, we're not running out of methane, but getting it here is probably problematic. I think it's Titan. Let me go look, make sure. Atmosphere of Titan. AATMOSPHGRE. Titan. Oh, Titan's only 5% methane, so maybe it's Neptune. Some Jovian. Okay, Neptune's thick atmosphere is mostly hydrogen with bits and pieces of helium and methane. Planet with atmosphere of... It's where one was methane. Oh, no, it is. It's just, you know, Titan is the big one that most people... there's just not a lot of it. I mean, if it was in Earth's atmosphere, it'd kill us all within minutes. There's so much methane there. But yeah, so anyway, there is methane occurring somehow on Titan, and you could mine Titan, I guess. But hopefully we found other ways to generate electricity besides methane. I think I've talked about it. So yeah, please do check out Boom Supersonic and Hermes. Jupiter, yeah, Jupiter's got a lot of methane. So yeah, anyway, thank you guys for joining me. I really do appreciate it. This turned out to be so much more awesome than I thought it was going to be. I just finished up one for a channel called SciTrack. We were talking about the perfect movie, and I said, well, you know, I need to pay some attention to SciWorx because I just changed jobs. The jobs I had, I was a professor of aeronautics, and I was, you know, I put in a full day at work, and then I come home, and then I would do more work. You know, it was just lesson plans, experiments to do in the lab, student issues, PowerPoint, a never-ending stream of PowerPoint presentations, and I mean, it absorbed my whole day. That's why SciWorx has suffered so bad, and I apologize for this. So I've got I started a new job here in a little bit, making spaceships. Shh, I'm not supposed to talk about it. Well, I can't talk about who it's for, but I'm making spaceships in the Mojave Desert. I'll let you figure that one out. I do follow NASA spaceflight. Yeah. You're very welcome, Jeanette. Hey, Jeanette, come back anytime. You know, and I might start doing these live streams on Sundays after the SciTrek thing is over. Maybe. We'll see how this goes. So, wait, hour and 8 minutes. You guys just like to hear me talk. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for joining. Please like, subscribe, hit the Patreon if you would. That would be awesome. You guys have a great week. And don't forget, most important thing, I'll be your lab partner. Take care. Bye-bye.